Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan. Yeah, it's Friday, and yeah, the Eagles have a game on Sunday, Friday for most of those who listen to this pod when it first comes out. However, Adam, we are not going to X and O this game in this podcast, this meaningless game against the Giants, nor are we going to do that on Sunday with Greg Cosell when we do the pregame show. In this podcast, we're going to talk a lot about the Eagles' Pro Bowl situation, their injury situation, a couple of transactions, and we will get into who we expect and who will be out on the field on Sunday against the Giants because it'll be a backup bowl for at least the Eagles, as Nick Sirianni confirmed. And then on the pregame show with Greg Cosell Sunday, I think we're going to get really into the weeds with the 2024 Eagles as they prepare to make their playoff march here coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're going to get into we're probably going to talk more about the Packers than the Commanders. So I think we'll probably talk about the Packers. Give you a
Probably.
little bit of early word, but we're actually this is what we call the developmental game for coaches. This is actually very important for the coaches. Definitely not
Yes,
meaningless for them
correct.
because Tanner McKee, we fully expect to start. He could play the whole game. We'll get into what this lineup looks like around him. But that's the problem since it's basically a preseason game for the Eagles. Who's going to be blocking for him? We're going to get into that, and that's the thing you worry about because McKee doesn't move all that well. He's got a great arm; he could spin it. In fact, I remember when our friend Mike Quick came on our show for Patreon in September, and he spilled the beans. He's like, "Tanner McKee's my guy." I mean, he went on and on and on. He loves McKee. He knows when you got a quarterback who can spin it like McKee,
Hmm.
it's noticeable, and he saw it in practice.
Definitely. I want to tie the knot here or just finish up the Saquon Barkley discussion. We said in the
Yeah.
last podcast, even before it was announced, we didn't expect that Saquon Barkley was going to
Yep.
play. He's not going to play. And, for us, it was a no-brainer. And for a lot of people who I speak to, either former players, media people, many of them also agree it's a no-brainer. But I got to say, I'm surprised by how many other people, maybe like fans, I guess, or some other people who national media who don't think it's a no-brainer and believe that the risk is worth the reward. Enough so that I'll say this, I haven't changed my thought on it. I doubt you have changed your thought on it, but
Mm-mm.
I'm willing to see somebody else, if somebody else values the rushing title per se more than I do. I think football individual awards are different than like baseball because I guarantee you half the people, if you asked 100 fans, doesn't the Eagles fans going into the year, who has the single season NFL rushing title, I doubt that a lot of them would be able to tell you it was Eric Dickerson and how many yards it was. So unlike baseball, where you knew for the longest time it was Babe Ruth until Barry Bonds came along and
Yeah.
and broke that, right? So, but if that's really important to some people, I will at least reach across the aisle and say, I'm sorry for you that you feel that way or that you won't get what you want. But I still think it's a no-brainer not to play the guy because it's all about winning the Super Bowl. And as you mentioned in the last pod, some players are really good, but you can win without. The Eagles are foundationally this year built around Saquon Barkley.
It's funny because I remember Greg Cosell brought it up in the spring, and he said he really wondered, he mused, you could say, he really thought,
Hmm.
he felt that there's a very realistic chance that they changed their philosophy. And we were like, yeah, I hear you, but man, Jeffrey Lurie, he never wanted to be wanted them to be a running team. So we'll see what it looks like. And then, wow, like for the first time since Jeffrey's owned the team in 30 years, it became a pure running team. It starts with a run. Yes, you have two great receivers, but the foundation of this offense is clearly the running game. It's not something you can argue. That's where it starts.
A
You know?
100%. Now,
Yeah.
maybe Adam, and this is a discussion we'll have with Greg, right? Um, on the pregame show. Maybe that wasn't per se the idea until they realized how great Saquon was going to be, and he stayed healthy and he made so many big plays early. Maybe that's just how it became, or maybe that was the plan from the start. I don't know, but it really sort of invites a question about the difference between last year's offensive staff, which they felt had to go, and this year's offensive staff. They didn't bring Kellen Moore in per se to make the Eagles into a more prolific running team. They really brought Kellen Moore to Philadelphia to improve what Nick Sirianni had said had become a stale passing game. And I think you can sort of make the argument, and I don't know if if you measure it statistically or not, but I don't know how much better of a pass offense they are this year compared to last year. I think the biggest difference is they run the ball really, really prolifically and explosively with Saquon Barkley. So it does bring to light, like, did the changes they make get the intended result, or was it really the addition of Saquon Barkley, not any offensive coordinator or offensive coaching maneuver that made this offense different than last year's and better?
Well, let's start with Kellen Moore. There's no
Mm-hmm.
question they wanted his scheme because what's funny, what's comical about it, Kellen's offense has pretty much always been 11 personnel, but it's changed here because you've got Barkley. And on your point, I think this is part of it. No one could have imagined. We always knew how talented Barkley was, but you never quite saw it enough because of the problems of the Giants' offensive line and problems at quarterback. And now you have a dual threat quarterback. Daniel Jones was, but not to the degree that Hurts is. And now you take Barkley, who's been an immense talent, but never could realize his potential to this point, not even close.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it. And I mean, you couldn't have imagined this. This is crazy what he's done. And he's setting team records, league records for certain things. As Cosell pointed out in the Tuesday Patreon chat, we were all talking about how Saquon's tape looks like sometimes where he doesn't get touched for a while, and there the next gen stats show there are like a number of runs where Barkley doesn't get touched for the first 5 yards, and Greg goes, oh, all the time. He goes, number of runs each game where he just runs through the hole and they don't touch him for a while. So that you could say coming in, oh boy, he's going to have a career year, but you couldn't imagine this. So this plays to your point earlier that at some point early in the season they started seeing, okay, we may have to adjust this a little bit, and that's what they've done. They've become a running team to a degree that I don't think anyone could have known. And Barkley, by the way, you mentioned the Pro Bowlers. Barkley made his third,
Mm-hmm.
and it's well deserved. He's had a game for the ages. Now, I do want to bring up something in terms of to play or not to play him. I don't think they even debated this one. That's just my feeling. Know the way the Eagles are, but I did talk to former general managers with another team now, and you and I talked about this over the weekend, but I didn't give you this story because I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I might as well bring it up since you were talking about it. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, so I might as well just finish this off. He said, because I said, hey, man, before we get off the phone, I need your opinion on this. I'm just curious how you would handle it if you were with Philly, if you were in Howie's shoes. He said, there's no way I'd play him.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, why? And he goes, it's probably not the reason you're thinking. It's not just injury for him. It's the other 10 starters that have to play.
Such a great point, especially the offensive
Yeah.
line. Yep.
Yeah, and I go, dude, that you said it so well, and I go, it's probably in the back of my mind, but I just don't think that way like you do,
Right.
because you're a
Right.
personnel guy. I'm not. I'm just some dopey media guy, or who's gathering information. So he just said you have to look at the way that we look at it.
Yep. Because you
Coaches,
can't
yeah,
put Saquon out there to get the record behind the backup offensive line.
yeah,
That's a
exactly. You would
that's a
never do that. It's
disaster,
like
right? Right.
even if this, let's just say, okay, let's say the Eagles actually debated this. I strongly feel like they didn't, based on what we know.
Agree.
But let's just say that Hurts didn't have a concussion and he was cleared to play, and it was only 25 yards. Well, that was my follow-up to this guy. I said, hey, what would you do
Good
if,
follow.
yeah, if it was 25 yards? Because that's the number that I came up with, because everyone keeps asking me this, and I've been thinking about this since the game. And he said, when did I talk to this guy? Sunday night? Yeah, I think I talked to him Sunday night. Yeah, it was after the Eagles Giants. Yeah, Eagles. Who they play? Cowboys
Hmm.
game last week. So I said, hey, what would you do if Hurts didn't have the concussion and the game meant something? Well, he goes, that's a different story, but it would come down to how many yards that the guy needed. And that's when I said 25 yards. And he goes, that's definitely going to be a discussion. There's no question about that.
Right.
But this guy had no idea, because he doesn't know what Barkley's first half numbers are compared with the second half numbers.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I said,
Knowing
dude,
Barkley, he'd have like 22 at halftime.
exactly. Yeah, and I brought it up to him. I said, dude, you probably don't know this because you should know this. But Barkley's first half of game numbers are ridiculously low comparatively to the second half. And don't ask me why. I
Right.
don't understand. Nobody knows why. But and he goes, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I was. He goes, I was definitely not aware of that. But he said strictly, as is, there's no chance that Barkley would play if he was managing the situation. And this guy definitely knows Howie, and I don't think they're like call, I don't think they're phone friends based on
Mhm.
this, but he knows Howie. And he goes, look, you just you he goes, you have to understand we're not putting out our other 10 players. We're not jeopardizing them. I'm like,
Yeah. It-
okay.
yeah.
That makes a lot. I said I kind of know that in the back of my mind, but I don't think like you, so it would never come into my thought process. So I'm like, all right, this is good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, Adam. They have not had to this guy's point, assuming it's a man. Um,
You know
they've
who it is. I
not
told you
had,
the stuff that we talked about. Other than that, yeah,
yeah,
you know, good.
to they haven't had a bye week since week 5. Came really early in the season. They're not
Oh
fresh.
God, yeah, that's right. Wow.
And then think about Mailata spent some time. I think people forget this. Mailata spent 4 weeks off. I mean, he was on injured
It's an
reserve
IR.
here,
Yep.
right? On IR. That's yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Dickerson has been in and out of nearly every single game
Yep.
here. Jurgens
A
didn't
lot of
miss
them.
too much time, but there was a time I remember us talking about how Dickerson moved over to play center when Jurgens had to come out for a little bit, which gave us the clue
Wrist
that
injury. Yeah, he had a
right,
wrist.
right.
Yes.
We know Becton has missed, I think, at least again. I know he's been in and out.
Becton missed one game week 8.
There
On
you
the
go.
quarter of my chart, yeah, he missed one game. Yeah, week 8.
Right, right. And I think Lane missed a game too with an ankle or
He did.
something like that.
No, it's
Yeah,
concussion week
concussion.
4
Right,
against Tampa. Yeah, yeah.
right. So each one of these guys has been banged up, and they have not had a break since week 5. So it's not just about Saquon. I think it's a great point. It's about all 10 guys, but to me, it's even more so about the offensive line. Because they'd be the ones that want to be out there getting it with him, and
Hmm.
they need to refresh. They need to be healthy. And even because you could say can't be scared of an injury for your running back, but now you've got other people, and if you don't want to be down on an offensive lineman going into the playoffs, you just don't want that.
And now this is from somebody else, and this is one of my favorite NFL phrases from personnel people. You're either winning a Super Bowl or you're not. So let's say they played Barkley. He has an ankle injury. He's going to be out three games. They could definitely win a game without Barkley, but they're not winning three. It's just not
Agreed.
happening.
Agreed.
Not with this NFC the way it is. This is not. This is one of the best NFCs certainly since we started the show in the spring of 2018. This is a really strong NFC. I'm so sorry. The offense goes through Barkley. And the other thing is, this is not the same Hurts of 22, where he carried this team.
Hmm.
Not that AJ Brown wasn't good, but Jalen, they won. There's that phrase: "Do they win because of him or win with him?" They won with him and because of him.
Right.
This year they're winning with him. Sometimes they're winning because of Barkley. Again, it's how do you win? It's Barkley. Now, one thing I would add, and Hurts, we'll get to the injuries later, and he's missed 5 straight practices. Which Hurts are we going to get for the playoffs? The one against the Steelers where he's phenomenal, or the one where you have no idea what it's going to look like when he's so up and down, doesn't see it, moves when he shouldn't move, breaks the pocket, indecisive. Which guy are you going to see? You just don't know. And I don't like that he's not thrown this week so far. Not
Right.
even on the field.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, I'm glad we tied the bow there on that situation. You can hear more about it on our platform. Merrill Reese had some very
Ah,
strong opinions with it and almost some intel as he was on with Derek Gunn on Gun on One. It's on the podcast and YouTube channel. And Merrill said he thinks the decision was made not even like last week, but a month or months ago, with the team foreseeing this being a possibility. He also had really good stuff just from Merrill's in the building a lot. So if you listen to it, you'll get his vantage point on the Eagles and their success this year. I think Greg did a great job. I thought in general Inside the Tape was a good one this
hmm.
week with Greg because it was less about the Cowboys game and more just about some young players who are really developing. And we highlighted Cam Jurgens, who just made the Pro Bowl for the first time, which shocked me, by the way. I did not know he was going to make the Pro Bowl.
I
I
didn't
would not have
either.
picked that.
I think not taking anything away from Jurgens. If you went through the centers in the NFC, it's not a great group, and
Nope.
that's
No, it's
but
not.
but but here's the thing about Jurgens, and you'll see it if you've not seen the Inside the Tape show, watch Greg's breakdown of Jurgens. He's a little bit bigger physically than Kelsey. He's a terrific athlete. Remember, former tight end. But I just didn't think he'd be this well ahead of schedule. Like that to play this well, and he deserved to be a Pro Bowler, by the way. He's had a really good year.
Had a good
We
year.
don't really talk him and Mailata. We have not really talked a lot about, to be honest with you, for whatever reason. I don't know why, but we just have not.
Yeah. Who are the other the two centers that made it, and the ones Ragnow had to make it. He's a great
He's
center
great. He's
from
the
the
best.
Lions. I believe he's the starter. Who is the other center? Why am I not? I'm sort of blanking on who
I'll
the
tell you in
other
a second.
center is. Yeah, tell me in a second. But it didn't hit me until I saw Jurgens there that, yeah, you're right. The whole entire class of NSC centers isn't good. I think Biotish probably could have been a candidate because of Washington's success this year, even though he's not that great.
Yeah,
Of a player, he's good, but sometimes when you see a team exceed expectations, they feel they got to take certain players. But Jurgens has had a really solid, really consistent year. Ragnow's a little stronger and plays it more. He plays it. We talked to Greg about this. So Ragnow plays a more physical, strength, power game. Same thing with Creed Humphrey, who's probably the best center in the NFL, the
he is
Chiefs center. Yeah.
phenomenal.
Whereas Jurgens, like Kelsey, compensates with athleticism for lack of power and size. And that's why they're able to get him into the second level and get him covering up linebackers and get him covering up safeties and, be able to run outside zone or even just, inside and with him breaking off his initial tackle to get to the second level. That's a function. And that's a lot what they did with Jason Kelsey, and they've been able to replicate that. I think that's an underrated element of this is that they didn't have to change their offense very much, which has been very successful over the past few years, especially their running offense, even without Saquon. They didn't have to change a whole lot. They just plugged and played and did their thing.
The thing is, and we talked about this this spring because this is what we were told with Jurgens is the one concern you had because he was so new to the center position. He only did it 2 years in college, and then obviously with the Eagles, is that the sorting, you're trying to figure out. You're also trying to because Hurts is going to get a lot of responsibility comparatively to when Kelsey was there.
Hmm.
So a lot more would be on Jalen. He wanted that, of course. He's been very public about it. He wanted more responsibility pre-snap. So Jurgens was going to. This is Jurgens' first full year as a starter. This is going to have to do a lot this year, and the pre-snap sorting was what we were told was going to be a concern, but I don't think it's been a concern for what we understand since the season started. He's done a great job. And by the way, the Pro Bowl centers, AFC, you mentioned Creed Humphrey, he's the starter.
Yep.
Tyler Linderbaum is really good, is for Baltimore, and Cam is the second team center. It was
That's right. There were only two centers
yeah,
per
yeah.
squad. Right.
Ragnow got the other. So it's typically, if you talk to personnel people, it's hard to find like 8 or 9 good centers.
Yeah.
That's very average or below average. It's just because it's why centers don't go high in the draft, like second round or third round,
Right.
because typically some third, but or Jurgens second, but usually not. Is because and by the way, usually if it's a center, the guy's a guard too.
Yep.
It's just not a position. Teams kind of like they accept that, you know what, it's probably not gonna be our best position.
Who's the center for the Vikings? Is it Bradbury or is he a guard?
Garrett Bradbury, yes.
Yeah, so I'm sure he might have been an alternate. I have no idea because he's a
Yeah,
pretty decent one. And then the
he's
guy I
okay.
thought he's okay. The guy I thought had a
Smaller guy.
chance, but then they wound up moving him to your point back to guard was the Rams guy, Avila, the second year interior offensive lineman, who's very good, but they
By the
moved.
way,
Yeah.
but just gonna say, what's the crazy thing is?
Hmm.
They signed Jonah Jackson to be their center.
Yep.
He got hurt. He never got his job back. I don't know what they're doing. So Avila, as you said, is their center.
No,
Of
no,
course,
they moved him back to guard. They moved Avila back to guard.
back to guard. No, no,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry. What happened there? Well, this is a crazy story. Like I don't know what they're going to do with Jonah Jackson's contract. So Avila was their center. Now he got moved to left guard, as you said.
Hmm.
Bo Limmer, a 6th-round pick, filled in for Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson's inactive every week. He hasn't been on the injury report for weeks.
My God, that's why they went and grabbed Dylan McMahon from the Eagles because
I guess, yeah, off the Eagles practice squad, I guess,
yeah,
but they've got, I mean, that's not good.
no.
And then it is crazy because then they traded for Kevin Dotson, who the Steelers couldn't give away last year. They don't want him. He
Hmm.
winds up getting a monster extension because he played really, really well. It's kind of funny how things work out. But getting back to Jurgens, really nice story. And then you've got the rest of the Eagles Pro Bowlers. Lane Johnson is 6. Landon Dickerson, he mentioned, is 3rd. Cam is
Hmm.
1st. Mailata didn't make it. His Pro Football Focus's guy of the year. He's been a guy. He's been phenomenal. Then Jalen Carter, defensive lane. Zach Bond, of course, who he had to make, and Zach found out, I guess, a couple days ago. A lot of players found out from the general manager. They found out from the league that the voting was over, so or was just about done. So that he found out. And good for him. What a great guy. He's so appreciative of the opportunity, and this is going to be fascinating to see what happens with him. Yeah, but it's a good story. The Bond one came out of nowhere in the history of our show. I don't. Maybe you can remember. Maybe our listeners know. I can't remember a less likely scenario than Zach Bond becoming a Pro Bowler, let alone a really good football player. I mean, he's never been a starter in his life at the NFL level.
Yeah,
Crazy.
nope. Couldn't have seen it coming. I can't even think of a comparison, at least from an Eagles standpoint, a guy who played at such a high level that you had very little expectations for. You didn't even know if he was going to be a starter or make the team going into camp, right? I mean, they had Devin White there, they had other linebackers, they signed Oren Burks. It was a 1 year deal. You figured he was definitely going to make the team at least for special teams, and the contract was good enough. But I mean, we've seen the Eagles cut ties with guys that they've signed for some money. So yeah, for that to be potentially defensive player of the year, I don't think he'll win it because it tends to be a award given to like people who've won it before or more household names. But we'll see, we'll see. But he's definitely a candidate for that. It's been an amazing story. I have a different definition than most, Adam, on what a snub is. Sort of like what you and I always talk about a first round bust. Like some people just want to call anybody a first
Yeah.
round bust. Mike Mamula is a first round bust. No, he had like 50 sacks in his career. He played for like 8 or 9 years or something like that. You can't call that a bust. He may have not lived up to the expectation, but he's not a bust, right? So I consider a snub to be when someone should have made the Pro Bowl and then the person who did make it didn't deserve it. It was like because he used to be a Pro Bowler a lot. Like the whole like popularity contest. I
Yep.
can't sit here and tell you, as good as Jordan Mailata played this year, that he is a true snub given who made offensive tackle. Lane Johnson, definitely deserving. Penny
Hmm.
Sewell, I've talked to people in the league about Penny Sewell. They feel he has played at as high of a level as Lane Johnson this year. Now he's not Lane Johnson for a career yet, but he's on the Lions. They're 15-1. He's their best offensive lineman. He's gonna make
14 and
Pro
2. Yeah,
Bowl. I'm
14 and
sorry,
2.
I'm sorry, my bad. Yeah, 14-2. Gonna make the Pro Bowl. So Tristan Wirfs is the literally only above average and very good offensive lineman on the Bucks who have been a very good offense all year long. I just can't sit here and say Jordan Mailata was snubbed. Can I say he's had as good of a year as Wirfs? Maybe, but those three guys are awesome, man. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree. Penny Sewell's an absolute beast. I mean, he and
He's
Wirfs.
amazing.
I know he's fun to watch. Wirfs is terrific. By the way, if he's played right and left tackle in his career, he's great. If the rest of the offensive line made it, we mentioned Dickerson, who's, by the way, voted in as a starter. And with
Yeah,
Tyler Smith, by the way, how about that? Tyler Smith of Dallas. The
that would
great story
surprise
about
me a
that
little
is,
bit.
what's that?
I think the Cowboys in general getting 5 Pro Bowlers on a not a great team surprised me. I know Tyler Smith's very good,
Yeah.
but I that one sort of surprised me.
And again, he was drafted to be Tyron Smith's replacement, and they didn't think he was ready, so they sent him in the guard.
Right.
He had not played before, and I mean, Greg will tell you, Greg didn't see that as him as a guard at all. In fact, he struggled a little bit early, maybe
Hmm.
1 or 2 games, and then he just took off where he was dominant.
Yep.
And it's plus he played at Tulsa. There was not a lot of expectations for him early on. They thought the teams thought he was raw, but what a great story. So good for him. Um, just to give you an idea of how I just want to finish this off, the Pro Bowl stuff, and we'll move on.
Hmm.
Just to give you an idea of how good Zach Bond has been this season, the only other inside backer to make it is Fred Warner. Cosell, Greg said that Bond has actually played better than Warner this season.
Wow.
He didn't say
That's
that
saying
Warner's
something.
clearly better, but Zach, up to a couple weeks ago, because we actually asked Greg on whatever, I think it might have been for Patreon. I just have to throw it at him. Geoff and I like to throw him, Greg, little things about, he doesn't do rankings, but we want to, hey, you're watching 32 teams. If you've seen anyone better, or how's he stack up? And then Greg one time threw out, and this shocked me because he doesn't like throwing out platitudes like this. And he goes, Zach Bond, quite frankly, has been borderline dominant. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, that
Zach
was like
Bond?
week 6 that he said that too. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
Um,
yes. So good story.
yeah, and it's not that Fred Warner is, well, he is getting a little older. I don't think it's just that he all of a sudden not playing well. To your point, I think, they lost like three defensive linemen, including Javon Hargrave, Armstead. They just weren't the same up front
Yep.
defensively. And then Dre Greenlaw wasn't there next to him. I think it does help Zach Bond that he's on a good front six there with a good environment and Kobe next to him. That doesn't take away anything. I'm just saying, I think that the environment helps you develop, and certainly he deserves it. And it's really cool that Zach Bond's name is right next to Fred Warner there in the Pro Bowl, and we'll see about All Pro. We'll see if he can make it
Yep.
there.
Yep.
And yeah, so and by the way, sixth Pro Bowl you mentioned for Lane Johnson, who just continues to make a very, very strong push to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know we had this discussion a couple years ago, like 2 years when they went to the Super Bowl, and I remember saying like he's only got four Pro Bowl. He'd have to play longer, even though he'd already played at a Hall of Fame level. I think now that he's got six, you can just there's no question about it. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Um,
Oh, you
Look,
don't think so now? You thought so 2 years ago.
no, no, but see, we don't vote for Hall of Fame because of the suspensions early in his career.
I didn't think about that.
Someone else brought that up to me, so I'm just gonna. This just came up like a couple months ago, and it was in the back of my mind that you have to look at that if you're voting.
I know, but I think all the Pro Bowls came after the suspension. Like,
Yeah,
it
I
must
have
be
no
different. It
idea,
was the
but
other way around.
no, but it's just overall that he did get suspended. Questions about why he was suspended. It's fair game.
Yeah,
I don't disagree. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame easily.
yeah,
And I just love his story because I covered him for that Senior Bowl in 2013, and I just could not believe what I was seeing because I saw the videos of him dunking a basketball and his athleticism and former quarterback, tight end, and it it's similar to Mailata, but not the same because Mailata never played football before, prior to 2018. But it's just that this to become one of the best tackles of the right or left tackle in the last 20 years, being that he didn't grow up as a tackle, and by the way, these guys, Mailata and Johnson owe Jeff Stoutland a lot of credit, man.
I
Stout
think the
is
Eagles should build a statue to, to Jeff
it really
Stoutland
is.
if they win another Super Bowl.
I know one former Eagles executive who knows you and I said to me, he loves Stout. He said love him. He said, how could you not? But he goes, Stout sometimes likes guys, and you scratch your head. Not these two players.
Right.
No, we're not talking about Mylott or Johnson, but it's more like what's the guy's name? Becton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you could tell Stout, I just don't see it. And as he sees it, it doesn't matter what you think. It's like
Mm-hmm.
he's going to make it work. And by golly, Lane, by the way, was drafted to be Jason Peters' backup replacement at left tackle.
Yep.
I mean, you just again, it's coaching, man. Coaching matters, folks. Hashtag. We've said this for 7 years. We'll continue to say it. And this year, everybody watching knows it. Just look at Vic Fangio. I rest my case.
Amen. There you go. All right, so that'll put a bow there on the Eagles Pro Bowlers. We'll get into some transactions, some important ones coming up in a second. First, we want to pause to hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, be sure to tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You will get a great deal. Take advantage of all their wonderful inventory, great customer service. It's not just buying a car, could be trading one in. And if you can't make it, definitely check out their website, skymotorcars.com. It is a pleasurable car buying experience. Hard to say that these days,
Best,
but
the best, absolutely.
the
The
best.
customer service. Read all the reviews are insane. Like they're just great because there's no pressure. That's the other thing about car dealerships, but there's no pressure at all. As you said, you can go browse their inventory. If you can't get in Westchester off 202, you could just browse their inventory online. It's very, very easy. The website's very user friendly. They ship across the country. A lot of pro athletes get their cars there. And by the way, if you don't have a lot of money, they have the so-called lower end cars.
There you
You know,
go.
expensive cars. In the middle cars, they got it all. And by the way, as you've mentioned, I've mentioned, you could sell your cars through them. My wife and I actually sold 2 cars through Sky Motor Cars some years ago.
Great. Love it. Awesome. All right. Transactions, Adam. You know how I always say this year for the Eagles, it feels like sometimes with transactions or injuries, they take one step forward and then a step back or a half step back. Like they get one guy healthy and then somebody else goes down. So Dallas Goedert is activated into the 21-day practice window off of IR for the second time this year. And that's a great thing. You certainly want Dallas Goedert back for your playoff run. However, CJ Uzama is the latest to go on IR. He suffered an abdomen injury, I suppose, in that game.
He did.
Yeah,
Yes.
against the
Legit.
Cowboys. Yep,
Yeah,
it's legit.
legit. Yep.
And listen, it's not. I'm not making an apples to apples here. Like he's as important as Dallas, but this is an area where the Eagles are thin, and Goddard himself has been hurt quite a bit. So now you're going into thinking about the playoffs where you've got Goddard, and your backup will be Calcaterra. But after that, you get to EJ Jenkins. So once again, they're thin and really reliant on Dallas to stay healthy.
Yeah, actually, it's only his first time on IR. He missed 3 games earlier this season.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. In fact, remember we said they timed it out correctly. They didn't put him on IR because they knew he's going to come back within the 4 games.
Right.
So yeah, this is a situation where it's great. He's having full practices. He's clearly trending towards being able to play this week if the game mattered. I'd be stunned if they played him. It's just, why would you play him? It just makes no sense. Not only does it not make any sense, they have to. I said this on our Patreon chat, or boy, we did our Wednesday chat. Went up being an hour. A lot of information, by the way, a lot of information and discussion we don't talk about here. But I could tell you, as one of the things I was talking about is like, because Calcaterra is not a good blocker. I know he's gotten a little better at it, but it's just not good enough to be a lead blocker at the tight end position. Goddard is the only one they have with Uzama gone. EJ Jenkins is a guy that's, he's a former receiver. He's learning the tight end position, particularly blocking.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have Goddard for the playoffs, if something were to happen and they played him this week for some odd reason, and he got hurt again, it's a problem. It's absolutely a problem. Plus, obviously, he's a really good seam catcher. And that's just, you can't have that. They need this guy desperately.
100%. And tight end, as you just mentioned, it's not a position that you can knock a little rust off in a season finale. That's more like a preseason game. Your tight ends get hit. They block. They play catch passes over the middle. So there's no need. I can understand if you want Dallas Goedert to be conditioned, but you're not putting him. I can't imagine you're putting him out there against the Giants to get some conditioning when you'd already thin at that position and you'd worry about him getting hurt again. It just doesn't make any sense.
Not only that, he's going to be catching. He would be catching the ball from a quarterback he's not working with. It's
Correct.
Makes zero sense. By the way, they don't have a tight end on the practice squad.
And that brings us to some practice squad news because they did release and re-sign some players there, right? So gone are Lou Nichols, the running back, and the edge Taron Jackson, who then was claimed, I believe, was it signed or claimed?
Signed,
right. Signed by the San Francisco 49ers.
On their practice squad. This is crazy.
Squad, right. Yeah.
So which would tell you, so what we're seeing now is there's some practice squad poaching, which what happens is let's say Jackson had been not cut by the Eagles and the Niners really liked him as an edge rusher. They may tell the agent, hey, listen, we'll offer him, we'll get him on we'll sign him to our 53. His contract is going to be up after the season. We're going to want him back. Or in this case, he was released by the Eagles practice squad, but from the Eagles practice squad, they signed him to the practice squad. He probably maybe they activate him for this week, but his practice squad contract ends after this week. They'll probably sign him to a reserve future contract because why the heck would you sign him now to their practice squad? It makes no sense.
I was thinking maybe it was just revenge for the Eagles getting all their cast-offs like Tracer, Ty Davis Price,
it's so funny because
Danny Gray and Castro Fields, Frank Gore.
Right. Frank Gore, yeah. That was great. Former Eagle, not legend, Frank Gore. Yeah, God, that every year somebody retweets that from Schefter and I doing that report in 2015. I like to comment on it. It's kind of funny because this is not 9 years ago. I believe what happened is he found out it'll be 10 years actually in March. Wow. 10 years. I think he had heard that Actually, it would have been 15 because Chip was Chip was fired at yeah, it would have been 15. Chip had
Yeah.
controlled it.
Yep.
He had heard how hard their practices were, which by
Yes.
the way, talk I don't know if not that players like to practice a lot, but the way that Chip did them, players just despised it.
Yeah. He may have
And
heard this from a former Eagles running back who played for Chip and got traded to Buffalo. All I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, and we know about Jason Peters didn't like it.
Oh yeah, that's
But
true.
but so anyway, so they re-signed Charles Harris to the practice squad.
Mhm.
Castor Fields is back, the corner, and an old friend, Mekhi Garner, who's really now a safety. So he's on the Eagles practice squad.
That's right, Mekhi Garner. The Eagles are stockpiling these like LSU guys, right? Andre Sam, Mekhi Garner.
Yeah.
Didn't Ricks go to LSU? He went to both
Bama,
LSU and Bama, right?
then Bama, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The Eagles getting that SEC in the defensive backfield. So, all right. So that's basically the transactions there. Listen, the big one's Uzama going, and not that Uzama was great, but again, it just makes the Eagles thinner at a position that they're already thin and where they tend to get a bunch of injuries. Let's go into other injuries. Of course, our injury update is sponsored by our friends at Stretch Zone. Do you want to start with who's off the injury report as opposed to on
Yeah,
it? Okay.
yeah, this is good. So one player came off, Josh Sweat, with the ankle injury.
Hmm.
Uh, Also not on it. Now, this turned out not to be correct. I guess it was out there that CJ Gardner-Johnson suffered abdomen injury. That's not correct.
Mm.
And if you watch the Eagles game last week against Dallas, you saw him bend his ankle back inward.
Hmm.
Now, it didn't look good, but we went to the sideline. He was walking it off, pacing. He's good to go. He's fine. If they had a game this week that mattered, he's playing. He's not even on the injury report. Man, it didn't look good. I got to tell you, I was in the Discord on Sunday. I was like, whoa, whoa, because with Verizon FiOS, the slow motion is phenomenal. You hit stop and you hit back, and you could see it's phenomenal. And I was like, wow, this doesn't look good. I hope it's not his Achilles. And I saw, in fact, I in the locker room, I was watching the interview after he was just talking about, what happened in the game and even talk about his injury. So I was like, oh, this is good. Now, here the guys are still on it. Hurts with a broken left finger and the concussion. He's not practiced yet, which tells you folks that through the protocol, he certainly is not passed. And there's no clubs are not allowed to talk about this. Even if he's in the building, you have no idea what phase he's in of the 5-phase protocol.
Hmm.
Here's what we know. He's not in phase 5, which is full football activity and clearance, final clearance if he gets from the doc and also the independent neurologist. He's not in that. He's not in club-based contact training drills, which includes throwing, catching, running, and other specific activities. He's not in phase 4. Now, he could be in 3. We don't know that. So he's nowhere past 3. By the way, he almost certainly wouldn't be available this week.
Yeah.
So based on where he's in the protocol, because it's next to impossible if you've not done at least a limited practice. I don't think in fact, it's been years. I keep track of this stuff. I don't remember a player who didn't practice at all by Friday and played Sunday. I think it's impossible by the protocol.
Right,
Now,
because you have to be on the field.
yes.
Correct. That's part. And what is that phase 3 or 4? The limited or getting out
Well,
on the
3
field?
is not part of practice. That's
Okay.
individual. That's working with the trainers.
Right.
You can do team sport specific exercise for 30 minutes or less with ongoing and careful monitoring. So that's clearly not practice. Okay, phase 4, which is one step away from the 5. The player continues cardio, strength, and balance training, team-based, sport-specific exercise, and participates in non-contact football activities, e.g., throwing, catching, running, and other position-specific activities. That would mean limited work.
Right.
And then neurocognitive and balance testing should be completed no later than the end of phase 4, with results interpreted as back to baseline. So now you're getting much closer. If you get through 4, you're going to start practicing. You could actually potentially practice fully. And then one more step is getting final clearance for contact, because you're not in practice. You're not going to have. You could push a guy, but you can't. There's no tackling, and you can't hit anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So he's clearly not there yet. So we'll see. We assume he'll be cleared next week to practice. He better.
Yeah.
But it's not up to it's not up to the general manager. It's not up to the head coach. It's strictly up to the medical staff, i.e., the doctor, to clear him, and they tell the trainers in consultation what he's allowed to do and not allowed to do.
Right. And then, of course, the independent neurologist, even more
Yes, it's
important.
last.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
That's the last. So there's no, I mean, listen, what's my concern level of this? My concern level is less that he won't be available for the first round playoff game. It's just that he's we're five practices in from the week before, and he's still not even at the limited part. So as a human being, I'm just hoping that he's feeling okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I brought this up last week. I think Austin Eckler, who was just recently reactivated into the practice window, was out on IR with a concussion because he was
Yeah.
having really bad symptoms, and he spoke to the media about it. He said it was really, not what he expected. It was worse than he's ever had, and
Mm.
that's scary. It's just scary. We've all seen Tua Tagovailoa and how he's had his concussions and
Yep.
what it looks like, and listen, as a human being, I just hope Jalen Hurts is all right.
Exactly. And remember, he led with his head. He's got to slide.
Yeah.
I know some people on YouTube who were not happy with Jalen when he did that, and I'm sure the coaches have talked to him about it. It's just you got to slide, man, because they can't touch you if you slide.
Right.
Back if they go down and even use their elbow, shoulder penalty, 15 yards, and if you go after their head, you can get chucked out of the game. So,
Mhm.
and remember, a concussion is a brain injury, and I know you and I have talked to former players about how they feel, and stuff. You worry about that stuff long term. I know our friend Brian Westbrook had post-concussion issues. I remember talking to B West about that, and many years ago after he retired. But then in recent years, he's been fine from what he told us.
Mhm.
But I worry about that. A guy I work with at ESPN who's still there is a former player. When he retired, he had post-concussive issues. So you worry, but it's again, man, it's your life, man. It's got to take care of it. They do the best with the protocol. I've talked to the NFL about it. Each year they review it. They're constantly looking at it, tweaking it with specialists. They're trying to figure it out, doing the best that they can. It's not easy, man. I've mentioned this before. When I first started covering league in '99, it was the 7-step. I thought way too subjective grading system for concussions, which is absurd. Unless you're getting a brain scan, how the hell could you give a guy a grade? It's ridiculous.
It is the whole thing has been subjective for quite a while.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
thing they have strengthened the protocol to
Mhm.
safeguard as much as possible. I think the newer version, which started a couple of years ago, is better than the first one. To your point.
18. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 18, then revised in 2020. In fact, I grabbed it on Thursday because I wanted to review it to make sure we understood it.
Yep.
And I remember talking to Dr. Alan Sills, who's really a good dude. He's really, and Jeff Miller from the NFL, who I see every spring at the
Hmm.
owners' meetings. So I'll see Jeff again. I always appreciate their time to help us learn more about it. And the big thing is the player reporting on it, and players being way more upfront about it. We know how badly they want to play, but they got it. The the protocols also help protect the players from themselves, and that's the thing that you really want to do.
100%. So hopefully Jalen is fine. Now, as far as missing the time being missed, I mean, the Eagles did not practice a lot of their starters on Thursday. So, AJ Brown wasn't out there. I don't think Devontae Smith was out there. I think some of the linemen weren't out there. They're obviously getting the backups ready to play against the Giants. So not missing it, but you still want him through the protocol so he can do all the classroom stuff, so he can do any
Yeah.
side throwing, extra stuff, because they will turn the page even this week. I'm sure there'll be some thinking about the playoffs and just getting conditioned and getting ready.
By the way, just so you know, and I don't know Nick Sirianni, and I know he doesn't like to give any competitive advantage. Not that this has anything to do with the competitive advantage, but to think that they're not already working, they will have, trust me on this. I don't know of a coach who's ever been in a position like Nick before that hasn't worked on the next week's opponent, only because it's the playoff game. They don't have a bye. Of course, it's either Washington or Green Bay. I'm sure they've started to work on that, but he won't admit it. That's fine.
Yeah, that's
But
fine.
it's some sort, because I know they're pro guys. They're pro scouts are at the Washington Green Bay games. They have to
Hmm.
be.
Yeah, of course,
But
of course.
anyway, so,
I'm
so
only
the,
focused on the Giants. Sure.
yeah, I know exactly what he said. That's exactly. By the way, you said it. I know he feels he's got to say that. I get that.
Yeah.
Although some other coaches admit it when they've done it. Anyway, let's get back to the injury. So Barkley hasn't worked this week. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. He tweaked his leg, remember, against Washington.
Yeah.
He missed the number of snaps, like over 30 snaps or something.
Mm-hmm.
Bond has just got light work this week. He worked in the walkthrough. He worked on Thursday. Becton, light work on Thursday. He's fine. No injury. Blankenship got light work on Thursday. He's fine.
Mm-hmm.
AJ with the knee, not practicing. It's the same little knee issue he's had for weeks. He's talked about it. He injured it one game, then he tweaked it on Thursday some weeks ago. He talked about that. Nakobe Dean, oh, this is great. Nakobe Dean's fine.
Yep.
He took all the starters reps on Thursday. He's good to go if they needed him. They don't. Jalen Carter, rest, light work on Thursday. Cooper, DeJean, light work. He's fine. Dickerson, he's fine, by the way. That little knee tweak that gave everybody a scare, he's fine. CJ, as I said, Gardner Johnson, he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Goddard with the knee, took starters reps on Thursday. If they needed a game, he's playing this week. They don't. He shouldn't be playing. Now this one is interesting. God, I wish we got to get we got to find this out. Just overall, how could a guy miss a significant amount of snaps in a game with a shoulder injury and not be on the injury report for said shoulder injury the next week? I mean, come on. What was that? I mean, this is ridiculous.
It's a little interesting. Yeah.
Yep. It's just Bryce Huff with and by the way, he had a full practice on Thursday, so he better play because they need him to. He needs to get in the good graces of Mr. Victor Fangio.
Right. Well, the only thing we don't know is how many snaps he missed based on how many he was expected to play to begin with, because it was his first game back, right?
Yes.
So I doubt that the recipe called for him to play 30 snaps or 75%, whatever the numbers were. I don't remember how many snaps. So he may have only missed a smaller number of snaps based on the pitch count that he might have been held.
Yeah, but just remember though, he left really early in the game, and I'm like, what the world?
But didn't he come back in? He came back in, right?
He did, but it's a legit injury. I mean, he left.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying like it appeared that he missed like so much of the game because he only played
right. So
X amount of snaps. Yeah,
right. I see. You're saying maybe they weren't going to play him a lot anyway.
Right.
So we mentioned Hurts with the broken left finger and the concussion. Lane Johnson, fine. He got a little work on Thursday. Juergens, Mailata, Quinyon Mitchell, they don't have an injury. They got a little work on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Pickett, he's got broken ribs, multiple broken ribs. He's not practicing. Give him props for playing last week.
Yeah.
And he as you saw, he got hit again in those said ribs. Shipley is on his way to getting cleared to play.
Right, because he was, I believe he was a limited participant on Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday, and then Friday he took
Right.
whatever, I don't know how many reps the backup would get prescribed, but
Yep.
he's on his way to getting cleared. That's going to matter. We'll talk about that later in the show. Darius Slay does not have an injury. He got some work in Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Devontae Smith, my understanding, it's a right wrist injury, which you saw him get taped.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't practiced this week. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. He's so tough, by the way. He's a tough dude.
He is.
And Nolan Smith and Sweaty got some work in on Thursday. They're not injured. So you know what? All in all, their injury situation right now, other than Hurts, I think they're pretty good in the clear here. I mean, obviously, Pickett showed he could play with the broken rib, so he'll be available in the wild card round.
You would imagine so. Yep, definitely. So a good situation. And those are basically all the injuries for the Eagles. Of course, our injury report was powered by our friends at Stretch Zone. Get a free 30-minute stretch by signing up at stretchzone.com. Adam, tell them where they can go to get into Stretch Zone.
So you could go in Chester County or the main line. You can go to Exton, where I was on Thursday, to see my man Austin in the Whiteland Town Center. Also have Nick, who I know Nick a lot. He stretched me. So is Emily or Madison. They do a phenomenal job. Hassan, the manager, great people there. At Devon, where I've seen my man Tyler near the Whole Foods. Haverford, near Suburban Square, right across the street. South Philly, near Graduate Hospital. I will go there too. On 25th and Washington Ave, if you've been down there in South Philly. Montgomery County, where I grew up. Elkins Park. That's actually right on Aldrich Road. Across in the Yorktown Plaza in Upper Dublin and Dresher, in the promenade at Upper Dublin off 611. It's interesting how they put it. A lot of these in Montgomery County off of Aldrich Road, for those of us who grew up in the area. Feasterville and Lower Southampton Village, in New Jersey, where you go, Cherry Hill on Evesham Road, Mount Laurel on Centerton Square, and Wegmans, Franklin Lakes, Franklin Ave, Northfield, Tilton Road, Princeton, yeah, Princeton, Nassau Park Pavilion. What did I get done on Thursday? Got Quad Day is Thursday.
Mm.
Is by the way, and the Ravens, I love when they do this. The Ravens refuse to, they rarely say quadriceps. It's usually thigh. They refuse to say, by the way, it's your thigh, for goodness sake. Why? What is with that? I don't know what these weird, these teams are weird. But anyway, the quadriceps is your thigh and the hamstrings are your back. So back of your legs. So bottom line is it's been a game changer for me. I would not be able to play tennis 4 to 5 days a week, which I do when I'm home and when I'm not away. So I do it. Without them, there's no chance I'd never. In fact, if Dave Spadaro of the Eagles didn't tell me about Stretch Zone, we wouldn't be talking about them now, because I hit my 3-year anniversary and they've been a game changer for me. And you could have your game changed, whatever you do, whether you're a pickleballer like Jeffrey or a kayaker like my wife, who's loves to travel over the summer.
I'm gonna guess your wife kayaks way more than I play pickleball.
Probably, yeah. She's pretty awesome at it. Yeah, and
awesome.
She told me she felt like Gumby after she got her first stretch, which is, by the way, what you want. You want to be nice and loose, man. And like I said, to finish this off here, if you're someone who's got to stand up all day, my wife works in retail, or you're someone who you're a teacher, a proctor, whatever the case may be, or you're someone who does sales calls where you put the headphones on. Some people don't like to sit down, like to stand up. Man, you want to get stretched and you're going to feel better. Trust me. I'm a client, so are you. StretchZone.com.
All right, sounds great. This summer, Adam, I'm thinking I might have to pop in if I'm down the shore, down at the Northfield Stretch Zone, if I want to get myself stretched out and I'm not closer to Cherry Hill. It's on Tilton Road near our friends at 97.3 ESPN, also on Tilton Road there. So, yeah. All right, you mentioned a game changer. We do want to say, if you're going to this Eagles game or you want to go see the Eagles play the Giants, or if you're getting ready for the playoffs, you can go use the Game Time app to get your tickets. So shout out to the Game Time app. All right, let's get into what we're expecting to see in this game here against the Giants from an Eagles standpoint. Now, you mentioned this with Hurts out and Pickett ribs. It's going to be a Tanner McKee game. I do wonder if they'll let him have the whole game, Adam. I would, personally. But I don't call the shots. They do have Ian Book there if they want to play him as well. But Tanner McKee, I generally think that people are excited to see what he's going to do. But you have to remember, everybody around him is going to be a backup too. And in the preseason, when he had backups around him, this past preseason wasn't as good as his first preseason.
No, in fact, the Minnesota game, I was so disappointed because I was blown away by watching McKee in practice sometimes. I know it's with the threes. By the way, did get a smattering with the twos, but and Mike Quick, our buddy, Quick 6, number 82, he saw it. He was there at every practice. He's there in more than everyone, just about. But the way that McKee could drive the football, I mean, if you could throw, you could throw. You know, now obviously, when the competition gets better, which will be in this game against the Giants, I mean, they've got edge rushers, they've got Thibodeau, they've got Brian Burns who could rush the passer. They've got some good defensive backs. Dexter Lawrence is on IR, but I just hope they could protect him because McKee doesn't move that well. But man, he could spin it. Because I remember, I think it was the Baltimore game 2 years ago, that preseason game. It was one of them, and I go, holy smokes.
Yep.
I was like, wow, okay, well, you want to go crazy here. You got to go through the coaches and front office people, or they don't live snap to snap. They go, it's over totality. They don't grade players by like fans do. Oh, those touchdown throws, there you go. Those that he had against Dallas. He's our next number 2 quarterback. That's not the way NFL teams ever think. If they did, they get fired.
I would think so.
Yeah, you got to go through the process, folks. They don't live. They take note of it. They always take note of every throw, but it's always totality. It's not throw to throw. Okay, there you go. You don't sum it up like that. You go long term through it, and then you got to make a decision. And this is a great opportunity. Now, as I said last week, I thought they would probably keep Ian Book on the roster to be the number 2, just in case something happened to McKee. Right now, it looks like that's what they're doing. Now, they have, by the way, you should know this, they have till Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is tomorrow, to have those elevations. I'm fascinated. Don't ask me why, but I'm fascinated to see who they're going to elevate.
I would think that, well, as we talk about running back, I would think Ty Davis-Price would be one of them.
Yes.
And listen, I ordinarily Will Shipley is ahead of Ty Davis-Price on the depth chart, of course. But with Will coming off the concussion and not having as much practice. Maybe Ty Davis Price gets a little bit more run than you would think, but it would be nice to be able to see Will Shipley get some extended time here at running back. Either way, you're going to see both of those guys.
Yeah, and then kickoffs, Shipley can do it. My sense would be if Shipley gets the final clearance, it's those two aforementioned backs, and Gainwell is dresses as the third back and only uses as an emergency.
Mhm.
And the out as we kind of look at what this lineup's going to look like, I think it could be fascinating because we've seen a lot of this before. So we mentioned McKee. You just mentioned the two backs, Jahan Dotson, the blocking receiver, Johnny Wilson, as we've dubbed him on our show.
Mhm.
What did you see on tape last week?
So
What did you
Johnny
call?
has been lining up in some more H back, full
Yeah.
back, really condensed wide receiver spots in order to block. I think it was not this. I can't remember if it was Washington or Dallas, but he lined up next to the quarterback in shotgun with Barkley on the other side, and he ran a motion toward the middle and was the lead blocker for Barkley. And then there was another time where he was lined up sort of like in an H back spot and then sort of again went in motion and right up the middle like a trap block for the running back. So we've joked about it, but they are actually using him now as a tight end slash fullback, getting that big body in there in the absence of having more blocking tight ends and a
He can
fullback.
block. I mean, he can really block. And
Yep.
then you got Anais Smith, who'll be the slot receiver and also could handle the punt returning.
Hmm.
Uh, we mentioned EJ Jenkins. Now the offensive line is pretty easy to project. Should be Fred Johnson at left. You got Trevor Keegan as a left guard. Nick Gates, who we were told really wants to be he prefers center over guard. Teams have graded him, think he's better guard than center, but to me, it would make sense that he be the center and then have Tyler Steen play right guard where he's more familiar than left guard. So he's played both. And then Darian Kennard, our guy who played two full games, I believe, in the preseason.
Yeah, it's almost like it was being punished.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Like, what is going on here? Watch this guy playing. What are they trying to do? Trying to get good tape then trade him? What are they doing? I mean, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
But I would think this group, I get it. Like they're not what you want ideally as a starting unit, but you know what? They know each other. They've worked together with a second team.
Hmm.
Boy, Steen's had some good snaps this season. Fred
Hmm.
Johnson's been a really nice surprise. Gates has started a lot of games in his career. He's made a lot of money. They got to protect from McKee. He doesn't move that well. Pickett moves way better, and obviously Hurts does.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens if they can protect him. Can he spin it? Can he get it to Dotson? Can he get it to EJ Jenkins, who most likely will be the number one tight end for this game? I can't
Hmm.
imagine if Calcaterra plays now that he played very long because you could always just have someone to help out Jenkins in 12 personnel.
Right.
You could
You
just
could
have
throw
a
an extra
backup
offensive
lineman.
lineman on if you want. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So they just don't. Calcaterra is very important. They don't have any other tight ends. They can't risk it. They got to be careful here.
Yeah. They got to be careful. Listen, I know that this this will be a little bit rough because Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau are
I
starters
know.
and pretty good
I
players in
know.
this league, and this is a backup OL. But hey, that's what this is for, getting these
Sure.
guys some snaps and getting them developed. I mean, you do have some veteran presence here with Fred Johnson at left tackle and Nick Gates at center. It's not like you got a bunch of rookies in there. You do have some youth with Keegan and Steen and Kennard, but you do have a decent amount of veteran play in there. So that's not bad. And we'll see how that's the offense. Let's go to the defense here, Adam. This is exciting again if you're kind of into seeing the young players because Thomas Booker and Moro Ajomo will be your interior guys, and those guys have played minimal snaps this year, but when they're in the game, you notice them. So this will be an opportunity for them to really showcase themselves over a longer stretch of time here in an entire game.
Yeah, Jones had a good season. Now, here's the thing, though. He's always their first defensive lineman off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be careful. Now, let me just throw this at you because he's not had a good season. Although he played earlier on in the season, I know Mr. Cosell said his tape was much better. Do you play Jordan Davis in this game?
I'm certainly not afraid to lose him to an injury if that's what you're
Not that
at.
you want to, right?
Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, of course
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
I think an argument could be made that he could use some snaps and that he doesn't play a whole lot of snaps to begin with, and any opportunity to get out there and get improvement for him would be important. So it wouldn't shock me if he played. because again, you only got you've got two elevations, right? One of them's
Mhm.
got to be a running back, Ty Davis
Yep.
Price,
Yep.
and then if the other one is not Gabe Hall, right? Then who are you gonna? You gotta have more than two defensive tackles to play this game. You don't want to play Jalen Carter. You don't want to play Milton Williams. So to your point, Adam, who else are you going to play at interior defensive tackle beyond Moro Ajomo and
Yeah.
Thomas Booker and even Gabe Hall as a third, if that's the guy?
Got to be Gabe Hall. Got to be. I mean, he can play five technique, three, seven. He's not a nose. It's not what he is. He's got ideal length. He's got everything you want in terms of size. It's just he was an underachiever in college,
Mhm.
but the Eagles gave him a big practice squad guarantee. Now's a perfect time to take a look at him. That to me, it would. I agree with you. You would think it's going to be Ty Davis Price and Gabe Hall, and here's the thing: they've got Huff who needs snaps. Now, I get
Ooh,
it. They're very light at
tough.
edge rush.
Listen, I think that there might be a
Okay.
little I don't want what's the word curveball in play here
Okay.
because I know you're about to say, hey, look, Jalex Hunt would have to play here, right?
But but there's a
Yeah,
but.
I think there is a but. Go ahead.
I feel like he's getting worn down a little bit.
Well, that and like you can't. He's playing too many snaps right now to just risk losing because then all you've got is Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, and what Bryce. Like you're still in a three-man situation, and it's not a
Who
better situation. I
and
think.
Fangio, just real quick, Fangio clearly does not want to play the guy. He just
Correct. Correct.
he hasn't shown. This is just based on usage. He
Yep.
doesn't seem to have a lot of confidence in him. Go ahead.
So do they still have Gant?
Oh, the Gant, Dallas Gant, but I think he's
See, I
back,
think that they're gonna have to use a guy
but
as
he's
an
an
edge
inside backer
rusher.
though. But he's an
But he has
inside
some.
backer.
I thought he had some edge experience. I think that they're gonna have to, for the
He's
sake
really
of
small, by the way.
taking up snaps, I think they're gonna have to play somebody at edge who's not a natural edge.
Just to
Whether
get
it's
through the
Oren
game, I hear you.
Burks, who
Yeah.
probably has done it with San Francisco a little bit, or whether it's Gant, I forget who. I'd have to go and look because the practice squad changes so much. Do they have
Well,
somebody
but
there?
he is on. No. The guy, but
Mathis.
see again, Ocean Massive. But here's the problem. Again, you you need to add another back to the roster, and you need to
Right.
add an edge rusher,
And
or
you
I mean,
need
excuse me,
Gabe
defensive
Hall.
lineman, Gabe Hall, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of it's kind of comical that we're actually debating over this, but this
Hey,
is
it's
probably what
important.
Howie and Nick and Vic,
Hmm.
Howie, Nick, and Vic. It's a new show. But that's kind of the debate when they have usually you have them the night before, or you might start the discussion after Friday's practice and finish it off on the Saturday night meeting for the game.
Hmm. Hmm.
But this is exactly what you're talking about. And look, you love to get Andre Salmon. You know what the league should do, by the way, after this discussion? You should have special dispensation in week 18. You should be able to have like 5 elevations. Why not?
I agree with you. I
Why
agree.
limit it?
Listen, I don't know how much Vic in a ideal world even wants to play Nolan Smith, right? Nolan Smith, but maybe
Nolan
he
Smith,
has to.
he ain't playing. No
Well, I
way.
mean, all right. So Nolan Smith and Sweat aren't playing. We already said they don't want to play Jalex Hunt, but they're probably going to have to. Like, you can't play Jalex Hunt and Bryce Huff the entire game, can you? I, I don't know where they go unless they try to take Oren
Um,
Burks and turn him into an edge on some situations or somebody else that I'm not thinking of.
Jomo maybe stand up as an edge. He could stand up as an edge rusher. I'm sure he can do that. You're right though. They're kind of in a weird spot. I didn't quite realize there was this. I should know this, but it just as we discuss this, I don't quite realize. I didn't quite realize how light they are at edge.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That's yeah, you're right. They're not going to play Nolan Smith. So I
Can't
don't
play.
I just don't know how they're going to make it work from a snap count. But that's, again, you can elevate guys, but if you do elevate an edge and a defensive lineman, then you can't elevate a tight end and you can't elevate a running back. So you wouldn't be
Right.
able to have Ty Davis Price.
All right. So finish this off. They just brought Charles Harris back, so he's certainly eligible to be called up. They could do that. But again, you only have 2 spots, and then
Wait. Though they with Uzama going on IR,
mhm.
that opens a spot. Now they
Oh,
don't have to sign Goddard because they're not going to play him. They don't have to activate him, is
yeah,
what I mean, onto the 53.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they do have
Good
an
point.
open spot to
Yeah.
sign somebody. And I think
Yes.
that's what they're going to have to do.
Yeah, I would see that. Trotter and Burke should be your starters. Ricks and Ringo should be your starting corners. Sidney Brown and Tristan McCollum should be the safeties. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So that's good. Now, listen, it's still dicey, even if they are able to get all three guys like a Gabe Hall, Ochon Mathis, and Ty Davis Price. It's still dicey on defense because
Mhm.
now you got to make sure that none of those guys actually get hurt in the game, and then you have to go into your players that you don't want to play to replace them. So we'll see what
Sure.
happens. That's why they're paid the big bucks to figure it out. And that's what we'll have more. We'll have more. But really, on Sunday in our pregame show with Greg Cosell, we're going to do a lot more about the Eagles' 2024 season, what Greg's biggest takeaways on the tape are from this season, and what we can expect from that as they go and prepare for their first round playoff game in I can't say 2 Sundays. It could be a Saturday night. We'll have to see.
Yep. Or Monday night. Could be
Or Monday night. Yeah, that's right. Could be
Yeah.
any of those nights. But
And we'll talk about the Packers too. We'll throw a couple notes on the Packers because Greg's got some really good stuff with Jordan Love, who hasn't thrown a pick in a while.
mhm.
Man, he was throwing a lot of interceptions, turning over a lot or the first half of the season. But they're a confounding team. If you follow the Packers closely, they should be better than they are.
Mhm.
There's some. It's if you look at the roster, you go, wow, that's a really loaded roster.
Yep.
But hey, their defense is better than it was under Joe Barry. But
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good enough.
I mean, all 5 losses are to the Eagles, 2 to the Vikings, 2 to the Lions. So they haven't really had a letdown, but they do just enough in those games to not win them. And that's
the Vikings games were getting blown out of both. They made the game closer than it really was.
true.
Now the Eagles game could have gone either way. That was a great game, by the way. The game in Brazil it really
yeah.
was. But they're a fun team. This NFC, folks, is no joke. It is no joke. And with Jaden Daniels as the Commandos quarterback for years to come, they're actually relevant.
How about that? How
Yeah.
about that? I've loved the NFL. I think the playoffs are going to be great this year, and I'm excited about it. But that is going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.